Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 6th annual Ed Talks presented by EatDenver. Thank you so much for joining us for what has to be all of your 750th webinar of the year. We promise to make it worth your while. We're so excited about the group of leaders we have on deck for you today. We couldn't think of a better lineup of thought leaders to talk to us at this moment in time. If you haven't already, please introduce yourself and say hi in the chat. We'll leave the chat open until Dave Cleary hops on to introduce Senator Hickenlooper. And before we fully dive in, I want to say our hearts are with our friends in Boulder this week as we're all grieving the tragic event and loss of our community on Monday. We're sending huge hugs and lots of love your way. And I want to note all of our 6 main speakers have pre-recorded their talks, and they did so before Monday. I'm Katie Laser. I'm the executive director of EatDenver. If you're unfamiliar, EatDenver is our independent restaurant association with 270 member restaurants founded 13 years ago. We support independent restaurants through community building within the industry, education, marketing, and as of the last year, advocacy. Normally, we're all crammed in together at the Oriental Theater or Tivoli Turn Hall. I woke up this morning and started thinking about a couple of years ago when we all got together at MSU. And it's one of my favorite days of the year, just catching up with everybody over Rosenberg's bagels, Bloody Marys, and some beers from the Post. And it's truly unfathomable the amount that has happened since we were last able to do that. And next time we have the opportunity, we're definitely going to need stronger drinks and going to need to pull out all the stops. I truly can't wait until we can do that again. None of us need to relive this past year, but the one thing I'll say is that it has been an absolute honor to work with you all in supporting restaurants, their workers, and owners during this pandemic. I can't think of anything more worthy of time and energy over the last year than working with you all to do that. Specifically to do so through an organization so special to us all, one that is built on the foundation of collaboration and the idea that rising tides raise all ships. When one of us was having one of those low COVID roller coaster weeks, others were always ready to jump in and share important information about changing regulations, how that 65th PPP update actually affects restaurants, and where your furloughed workers could get free meals and financial support. This community banded together more than I've ever seen a group of people. And it wasn't ever about the businesses. It was always about the people and always about humanity first and foremost. That is one of the things that has got me through this last year. And really proud of our community and really fighting for you all and our restaurant community. Through our listserv, I saw you all offer to help each other in so many ways that truly encapsulate our community. Some folks offering to help board up each other's restaurants during the protests, giving your cell phone number out to help your peers through their PPP challenges, offering free meals to each other. But most of all, I saw you lift each other up through the darkest moments and share love and support. And most importantly, hope with each other. We all took our turn playing that role. And that is really what this EatDenver community is all about. That is what kept me going through all of this. And that is why we're coming out of this pandemic a stronger, more organized community. So I want to just start by saying a very deep thank you to all of you for playing that role for each other, for me, and for stepping up in all of the unique ways that you did for your teams, your peers, your community, our industry. I always said I couldn't work with a greater group of people, but I am more in awe this year after working closely with you all, closer than I ever thought over the last year and some change. And what a special day 2 of the Restaurant Worker Vaccine Clinic in Denver. And I know we are all filled with a newfound hope for the future. This was a long time coming, and I know we are all so grateful to see those vaccines hitting restaurant workers. And I know we're all excited about this next chapter. So on to the talks. Next slide, please, Eric. On behalf of our whole team, I want to say a huge thank you to these 3 sponsors for supporting our event, our organization, and our industry. Tattered Cover Bookstore, which we all know and love. Society Insurance, which just launched into the Denver market last year. And Ecolab, who most of you already work with. Thank you so much to these 3 groups for supporting this event and for your partnership. Next slide. And speaking of our whole team, I'm so grateful to work with our the EatDenver board of directors. Next slide, please. These 14 volunteer board members are your peers that are working behind the scenes to make the magic of EatDenver happen. I might be the executive director, but this organization has always been and always will be run by the restaurant industry for the restaurant industry. These individuals spent the last year not only salvaging their own businesses and taking care of their teams, but they worked so hard behind the scenes to support you all and make sure EatDenver would come out of this intact. So huge thank you to our board, who I work with so closely and rely on so heavily. And so sometimes you all give me the kudos when it belongs to this whole team. So thank you so much to this group. Next slide. And specifically, a huge thank you to these rock stars. This is the Ed Talks team, led by our fearless leader, Super Sabes, Sarah Abel. This group had so much fun planning Ed Talks. And I know it's crazy to think about having fun during this time, but it really was the most fun I've had and the most hopeful I've been since the pandemic hit. This group had incredible conversations over the last few months about what does our industry want and need to hear about in this very moment in time, and who are the best people to deliver those messages and inspire our industry at this moment. And the overwhelming sentiments from this group were mental health, equity, and politics. A couple of things we talked about a lot but didn't make it to the lineup include restaurant technology. We all know how heavily this industry has depended on and leaned into all different types of technology, especially over the last year. And the future of alternative proteins was another topic that didn't make it to the lineup. But we couldn't cover it all, and we instead focused on the human side of hospitality, something that we know now more than ever is deeply needed and deeply significant to our healing after such a terrible time and experience this last year. Next slide. So here is what we landed on, and we really could not be more excited to introduce these speakers to you, share their messages, and really come out of this today, hopefully inspired and with some new ideas and new things in your toolkit to keep progressing the rest of the year and really think about the future. That was one thing. We didn't want to spend this whole morning talking about COVID and reliving so much of what we've all been doing in the trenches. We wanted to focus on the future, and these 6 leaders are going to help us do just that. So Today, we're going to start with a special message from our Senator Hickenlooper. And then our second speaker is Turow-Paul. Then we'll hear from Patrick Mulvaney from Sacramento. And then we'll have a quick break and move into Mariah, Kunkel. And then we'll have the New York City special segment of our program, starting with Niki, Russ, Federman, and Marcus Samuelsson. So really awesome this year that we have the opportunity to hear from folks from New York, Chicago, LA, and Sacramento, and of course, Colorado. So without further ado, one more slide actually. So follow along today with our handle EatDenver and the hashtag EdTalks 2021. Please tag our speakers and EatDenver and follow along in the conversation. We want to know what strikes a chord with you today and what is important to you. And we're going to kick off the program with the one and only Dave Query from Big Red F Restaurant Group, a former EdTalk speaker and one of all of our favorite humans. I'm going to pass the mic to Dave. Thanks so much, Dave, for being here.
Good morning, EatDenver Nation. Thanks, Katie. Big day, yeah. I get to get a shot today, which is exciting at 147 in the Automo parking lot. I think it's a drive-through. They just throw the needle at you and see if they can hit you in the arm, and it's fast and easy. And yeah, I miss that Oriental Theater excuse for having a bloody. It's one of the days of the week where you can justify a Bloody Mary before 10 a.m. The other 5, it's a little challenging figuring out how to justify that, but I look forward to all of us being able to get together again and do that. Thanks to all the hard-working peeps at EatDenver, especially Sarah and Miss Katie for putting this great program on today. EatDenver is really a unique way for all of us independents to share ideas and best practices, and I'm so glad to be a member. I hope that Sheila's on. She has a mad crush on Marcus Samuelsson, so it's always nice to get those two as close together, even if it's on a Zoom call as possible. Truly horrific happenings here in Boulder on Monday with the shootings at King Soopers, a store that I grew up with my family going to. And when I had a family, my kids grew up going to. I think I jacked my first pack of gum at that store. This does and will happen anywhere in the U.S. 7 of these events happening in America in 7 straight days. We have a big and powerful voice in the restaurant industry. And I know locally our brother Adam Schlegel has been working hard for quite some time on issues around gun control and reform that will create an opportunity for the hospitality industry as a whole to have a powerful and a unified voice on this issue. I don't think anyone is trying to take anyone's guns away. We're just trying to prevent fucknuts like this guy on Monday from buying these type of weapons as he did 7 days earlier and then using them in this manner. This has to stop, and I think we can all be a part of that process. You can learn more about what Adam is working on at cbogs.org, cbogs.org. It's an honor this morning to introduce our leadoff speaker, our friend John Hickenlooper. Whether you've had the opportunity to hang out with John and drink a beer or 5, if you've ever had the chance to not meet him yet, know that he's a friend. He speaks our language. He knows our challenges. He was in the game before most of us on this call today were working in restaurants, doing what we all do before there were tutorials and Google searches and YouTube how-tos that show us the way. John was one of the pioneers to open one of the first brew pubs in America and certainly the first brew pub in Colorado. We all know that it would be incredible to have such a prerequisite for anyone to hold a public office to first work in a busy restaurant, teaching these folks a host of skill sets and personality traits that so many of them incredibly lack. John, on the other hand, has this deeply rooted skill set of being an entrepreneur and a restaurant guy. He's an incredible listener, really strong unifier of ideas and momentum. And we in the hospitality and restaurant industry have a really great ally and a leader as our state senator. And I know he's going to do great things, not only for Colorado, but the nation in this role. So without further rambling, It is my honor this morning to introduce Senator John Hickenlooper.
Hello, EatDenver community. A few years ago, when I was governor, Dave organized a Q&A with many of you at Ace Eat Serve. Back then, well, heck, even a year ago this month, we couldn't imagine the challenges ahead for the restaurant industry. Over the past year, you've had to shut your doors at a moment's notice. You struggled to access emergency relief funds and keep employees on the payroll. You've invested in PPE and ventilation and outdoor dining, even takeout cocktails. Your innovation during the most trying time your industry has faced ever has been an inspiration and a testament to your creativity and resiliency. Nothing is easy in the restaurant business. I know that from experience, but the last year has been truly onerous. So before I go any further, I want to take a moment and just say thank you and congratulations. The pandemic's rapid spread last year came from a failure to listen to science at the highest levels of our government, but our efforts to slow the spread, those efforts fell on each of you. Your sacrifice was immense, but together you helped save thousands and thousands of lives. And now there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We just passed the American Rescue Plan, a sweeping relief bill to help supercharge vaccine distribution and help families and small businesses reach the end of the pandemic. While the bill has many facets, one of the things I'm most excited about is a pot of relief funds specifically set aside for restaurants. For the first time, we made sure there was federal funding specifically designated to help restaurants, food trucks, brew pubs and bars and saloons, so many other similar establishments. We helped them to the tune of $28.6 billion. Now, this money will be distributed as grants, not loans. You'll have a ton of flexibility to use the funding on things beyond just payroll, including rent, utilities, paid sick leave, expanding outdoor dining to help you safely serve customers, and really to bring people back to work. Grants are available up to $5 million with a cap of $10 million for restaurants with multiple locations. And we've made sure to set aside funding for small restaurants with annual revenue less than $500,000. We will also make sure we are distributing these resources with an eye towards equity. The restaurant industry has taken a severe hit from this unprecedented pandemic. We've already lost many establishments. We can't let any more fall through the cracks, not when the end is so close. That's another piece of this rescue plan that I'm really excited about: vaccine distribution. The relief bill marshals unparalleled resources to increase both the number of places where people can get vaccinated and the number of people providing and supporting vaccinations. We are already seeing this impact on the ground. Our economic health is intricately tied to our public health. Your businesses won't be able to really get back to normal until your customers really feel safe and confident, and that hinges on widespread vaccination. Please know that we're looking out for you in Washington. I'll always be a brew pub guy at heart. And now we've got a seat on the U.S. Senate Committee on Small Business. You all have a stellar lineup of speakers today, from Marcus Samuelsson celebrating Black cooks to Niki Russ Federman highlighting how her family-owned cafe has persevered for a full century. Colorado and our restaurateurs are nothing if not resilient. With a little help, I know all of you have what it takes to get through this and reach the good times ahead. Thanks for having me, and I can't wait to drop by and order a beer in person.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Liz. As you can see, I'm here in beautiful Boulder with a view of downtown Pearl Street behind me. As many of you know, this is where experts say there's a high-end food fight happening with so many amazing restaurants in one place, just like Denver, that have survived the past year thanks to unprecedented creativity. This is also where I met our next speaker years ago. At my brand innovation firm, SRG, we predict the future of food across the hospitality industry to help build brands, both big like Cinnabon and Panera, and small, including our very own Colorado-based Modern Market, Qdoba, and more. And when we envision the future of food, we look to Turow-Paul as one of our favorite experts. At our last innovation forum, Eve shared inspiring findings from her book, A Taste of Generation Yum. It's about how the millennial generation's love for organic fare, celebrity chefs, and microbrews, like Hickenloopers too, will make or break the future of food. And it unlocks all kinds of millennial mysteries for you too. Since then, she founded the Food for Climate League, a nonprofit to democratize sustainable eating and to tackle the climate crisis. She's written many more articles for Forbes and other global publications. She's spoken at many more events like South by Southwest. She then wrote another new book called Hungry. This one's about our favorite avocado toast, Instagram influencers, and our search for connection and meaning. You're gonna want to order this one too. She actually started a virtual book club over the last year where we all come together online as quarantine has continued to find that meaning and connection that we've all been hungry for as we miss our favorite restaurants. So often over a delivered restaurant meal, you guys can join us online for that too. But since we met on Pearl Street here, Eve has also welcomed a baby girl to the world and just been a big advocate of the hospitality industry, unlocking food culture and what it means. And today she'll share with us a bit about restaurant culture and recovery and why restaurants are crucial to our well-being now more than ever before. Please join me in welcoming author, climate activist, fellow mom, and my friend, Eve Turow-Paul.
Have you ever paused to think about why it is that so many of us are choosing to spend our discretionary time and income on food? Or why it is that the millennial generation, who came of age during this digital revolution, have spurred the foodie movement? Why is it that we think it's worthwhile to spend $7 sometimes on a cup of coffee or $25 on a bowl of ramen? My name is Eve Turow-Paul, and I am honored to be with you all today and partake in Ed Talks to share a bit about the why behind today's biggest food and lifestyle trends. I have been studying the why and the emotional drivers behind our food and lifestyle trends for over a decade. And I love to really dig into what the psychological and sociological drivers are that will give us a better understanding of why we spend our money the way we do, why we spend our time the way we do. And today, I'd really like to dig into why it is that restaurant culture in particular is so critically important for our well-being as we recover from COVID-19. Not just for those in the restaurant industry, and I'm not just talking economics, I'm talking for eaters all over the world. So first, some brief introductions. This is me, my daughter. I myself am a millennial. I'm a mother. I do think that that informs the way that I see the world. And again, for the last decade, I've been really, really obsessed with this question of why. Why is it that we're spending our discretionary time and money on the things that we are focusing on? I'm thinking of anything from poke bowls to goat yoga. And most of my time has been spent really honing in on food culture. What is it in particular about food culture that is resonating with people during the digital age? And a lot of my work really comes back to assessing what is it that we need to feel well in order to figure out why it is that people are choosing to spend their discretionary time or income on something. We need to also think about what basic human needs are we trying to fulfill? And during that time of analysis, what I have identified is that by looking at a whole lot of different theories of well-being, many of the experts, whether it's in psychology or religion or neuroscience, they really align on these three buckets, which is that we all have a desire to feel in control and safe. We all have a desire to be a part of a community, to feel like we belong, and we all have a desire for purpose and meaning in life. And what we've been able to see over the last many years is people trying to fulfill those basic human needs by engaging in certain aspects of food and lifestyle culture. So in my most recent book project, Hungry, what I'm looking at is how our digital age environment is impacting our abilities to meet these needs. What I've been focusing in on, well, how is tech either making it easier or harder for us to feel in control, to feel like we belong, to feel like our lives have purpose? And prior to COVID, we were already seeing extremely elevated rates of stress, anxiety, depression, loneliness, burnout, nature deficit. I can go on and on and on. We really were struggling with so many things, in large part spurred by our lives that were connected to screens. Of course, we've only seen a lot of these ailments exacerbated over the last many years. But what I've been fascinated by was watching how this amazing food culture was born at the same time as the digital age, in large part as a way to cope with our digital age environment. So just a few examples of how this was showing up and has been showing up and still is. First, we've been trying to create a sense of control and order in our lives by asking for foods with transparent ingredients, things that we understand. So many of those who I have interviewed around the world over the last decade have said, I have no idea how my phone works. I don't know if my city is going to be underwater in 50 years, if I'll ever be able to pay off my student loan debt, but gosh darn it, I want to understand what it is that I'm putting into my mouth each and every day. And interestingly, when we are cognitively overloaded, which so many of us are these days with 24/7 news and notifications and emails, science studies show that if we understand what it is that we're eating, we find it to be more pleasurable. Right? It allows us the cognitive space, the emotional space to really appreciate what it is that we are eating. People have also been using food as a conduit to community. Over this period of time, rates of interest in religion have gone down, political affiliation has gone down, the number of people who even know their neighbors has gone down. So we've needed to find new ways of creating identity and finding those who share in our value systems. And so how have we been doing it over that last decade? We've been doing it oftentimes through diet by saying, hey, I'm Suzanne, I'm a vegan. Hey, I'm Joe, I'm a paleo dieter. Right? And realizing that these are mechanisms to express who we are and what our value systems are. Our interest in community has also contributed to an interest in communal dining, in shared plates, an obsession sometimes with influencers, right? People finding their tribes. Now, food has also become a conduit to find meaning in our lives. And when I say meaning, sometimes I'm talking about changing the world. Other times I'm talking about just finding a sense of fulfillment from a day-to-day activity. For so many of us, that has been partaking in the DIY movement, creating a new skill set of some kind. Do you remember the boom of adult coloring books? That is also about creating a sense of meaning and purpose in your life. At the end of your little coloring spree, you can look down and say, look at what I did. I accomplished something. It's physical, it's real, which is in direct antithesis to a lot of the time that we're spending, which is on screens, creating things in the digital world that if your computer crashes could disappear. This has also contributed to the rising interest in things like fair trade and sustainable products. So again, our human needs showing up in the way that we are spending our time and money. In essence, food has become a coping mechanism for this digital age that we are living in. Now, in the context of COVID-19 and the Black Lives Matter movement, this is still true. In many cases, so many of the events of 2020 have simply accelerated the trends we were already seeing. So we have a new set of issues that's really impacting our emotional well-being. We have immediate health concerns, unemployment, isolation, coming face to face with social injustice. And a lot of us are also spending less and less time outdoors, right? This is driving up rates of depression, of stress, anxiety, these issues that were already really major issues prior to the pandemic, now just exacerbated. And that's showing up again in the way that we are interacting with food culture, right? At the beginning of the pandemic, so many of us were trying to create a sense of agency and control by hoarding foods. Now people are looking for immune boosting foods, comfort foods. A lot of us are wasting less food because we're trying to be smart with our dollars and make less trips to the grocery store. A lot of us have also learned how to grow our own food. Again, trying to create a sense of order in a moment of pure chaos. The other thing that we're using food for is as a conduit to community. In this moment of isolation, some of the biggest trends have been around food, whether that's banana bread or sourdough or watching influencers on TikTok. We have also found ways to support our local businesses. Spending at local restaurants is actually back to where it was prior, if you just look at millennials and Gen Zers. People are really eager to connect with those who are in their community. That also includes our farming community. people really thinking about, sometimes for the first time, who it is that's putting product on shelves, who's breaking down their animals to package them for sale, people who are harvesting their food, who are preparing their food. So food culture really has become this amazing conduit and avenue for creating a sense of community and belonging during this moment of intense isolation. People are also looking to food culture to create a sense of meaning and purpose. Now, when everything shut down, what did so many of us do? We broke out the flour and the yeast and we dug our hands into a bowl. We wanted to create something physical, something tangible, something that was a marker of time passing. That was a lot of the gardens too, right? Plant a seed, watch it grow. Though every day feels kind of repetitive at this point, it's evidence that things are moving along, that you are being productive. We also saw a rising interest in sustainable foods. Many people thought that people's concern about the climate crisis was going to go down. In fact, it went up this past year. People are realizing that one person can have a real impact. So now, what is the role of restaurants in all of this? Really, restaurant culture has never been more important than it is today, right? We can talk about the economics, and I'm sure that there are other speakers who are going to go over that. But I truly believe that restaurant culture is vital to our emotional recovery. Restaurant owners, restaurant workers can help us feel more in control, more bonded, and more purposeful in our day-to-day lives. And that's never been more important than it is right now. So how can this happen? First, restaurants can become safe spaces. They can allow us to get to know our ingredients, get to know our makers. Perhaps your restaurant is going to offer foods that make people feel like, hey, I'm doing something really good for my health, or I feel really, really comforted. Restaurants are also an amazing way to make people feel as though they're contributing and are a part of a group. Again, investment in local businesses has never been higher. Businesses in the restaurant industry can also provide opportunities to become activists, whether it's around the climate, whether it's around racial justice, or any other number of issues that people really care about. And restaurant culture can also be a way for people to then connect with the terroir of where they are, right? We're going to be stuck in the same place probably for a while, but there are foods that only grow in your region. There's talent that's only where you are. This is an opportunity to celebrate what makes your location special, what makes your people special, and create that sense of pride, of community bonding right through your own establishment. And then finally, purpose, right? All of us want to be engaging our bodies, building new skills, spending time outside, but also putting our dollars to work. Really focusing in on how can we use food culture as a conduit to activism. And this is a perfect space for many in the restaurant industry to play in. Again, I said it before and I'll say it again. Restaurant culture has never been more important than it is today. Thank you to every single person who has been feeding us for all of time, but especially over the last year. People who have been harvesting, driving, working in factories to put our foods into boxes, who are actually putting our foods together in a delicious way and getting it onto our plates. You guys are critical to our survival on a physical level, on an economic level, but you're also critically important to our emotional well-being as well. So thank you all for listening. I'm so happy again to participate in Ed Talks. And if you'd like to learn more, here is my information. You can go to hungrybook.com or Turow-Paul.com. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Eve. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm really honored to be a part of Ed Talks. Ed Talks for me has always represented a deeply important moment for all of us to come together collectively and really connect with what's most important and what's deeply connecting us in this industry as we move towards new opportunities and as we navigate out of the most challenging time I've ever witnessed in this industry. Coming off of the horrible tragedy that happened on Monday and, looking towards optimism of what's going to happen coming out of the pandemic this spring and summer, as we're all looking towards hopefully wildly successful patio seasons and the opportunity to feel some sense of normalcy. We have to embrace the idea of taking care of each other more than ever. And our industry is inevitably focused on our guests and taking care of strangers. But what happens to one another? How do we take care of each other? How do we take care of our staff? So Patrick Mulvaney, amazing human, incredible chef, and a great friend, has become an amazing, profound advocate for mental wellness and health within the hospitality world. And he's engaged with so many great organizations, Slow Food, James Beard, all these great things. But his main focus over the last few years, as the result of some terrible tragedies within his restaurant community in California and Sacramento, has been to translate things into a way to create a beautiful support network for one another, to stay connected and to check in on each other and make sure we're doing okay. Through the pandemic, he was a co-founder of an amazing organization, Family Meal Sacramento, which has taken care of thousands of families in need. He was a partner and still is with Great Plates, which is an organization that's taking care of over 1 million elder care folks in need of food security throughout the California area. And he's done a tremendous job with just making sure people are taken care of. So in our industry, 17% of food service and hospitality workers are suffering from some form of substance abuse, and that inevitably leads into mental health challenges and problems with finding our place in the world and wellness. And it's not getting any easier to figure this all out. If it's harder than ever and more challenging than ever. And that's why we need programs like I Got Your Back, which is what Patrick co-founded and did a tremendous job of pioneering as a way of taking care of each other as staff and just checking in on each other. So I want to introduce Patrick, and I want to make sure you guys check out his website, igotyourback.info. There's also another great resource called not9to5.org, which is a phenomenal program that you can actually download a mental health training module for your teams to be able to advocate for one another and take care of each other in these very challenging times. Their program is called Primary Concerns, and that gives you the tools and resources to be someone that you can, reach out and connect with, folks that are, going through some challenges like we all struggle with constantly. So I want to introduce Patrick Mulvaney, chef and owner of Mulvaney's Building and Loan, a mentor, leader, a guide. He's a phenomenal individual and he speaks so beautifully. So I encourage you all to please lean in, cozy up, and Chef Patrick Mulvaney.
Hi, I'm Patrick Mulvaney. My wife Bobbin and I run the Building and Loan, a restaurant here in Sacramento, California. I want to thank EatDenver for inviting us to come talk about I Got Your Back, our project to 86 mental health issues in the restaurant industry, and to you, the community of Denver, not only for coming to listen, but for all the fabulous meals that you provided us over the years. Denver really always strikes me has a really tight hospitality community, much like we do here in Sacramento. And it was the genesis of what we started in 2018. In the year, we had over 18 people die by suicide in our business. In the beginning of the year, we had a slate in the end of winter and came together as chefs and restaurateurs to say, what do we do? This has to change. We can't have it anymore. But we didn't know what to do, but we're chefs, so we just kept doing shit. But we asked for help from teachers, from hospital administrators, from doctors, from politicians, from whoever would listen to us about it. And what we found was that the love that we give as restaurateurs, people sometimes don't know how to give it back to us. And so when we came to them and said, hey, we need help us, the community really stepped up in lots of ways to do it. One of the big losses for us that year early in May was our friend Noah Zonka, who'd been a great chef in town and beloved by everybody and had fallen off the rails. Called his mom in April to say, Gene, where's Noah? Right? No one's seen him in a couple of months, hoping that they'd say he's with me in Wisconsin. And Gene said, he's living by the river. I haven't seen him in a year. And I miss him. And if you see him, tell him I love him and I'll do the same. 3 weeks later, they found Noah. He was at the river and he was there alone, and it galvanized our community, right? To see we'd lost this person, and maybe there was nothing we could do, but maybe there was nothing we could do to fix it, but we knew that we have to do something. We came together, and we had a memorial for him here, roasting pigs outside, and a friend came by who's having a conference for health people here in Sacramento, and said, that's it, you're the problem. In October, the health people are coming here, and I told them they want them to leave a scar on Sacramento, and the scar they're going to leave is improved health services, mental health services for hospitality. So they came for 3 days. They were here talking about mental health issues. We got to give this speech, tell them where we were and how we had learned. By that point, we learned that we need leadership at every restaurant to say, it's okay not to be okay, to create that environment where people know that you're taking it seriously. Everyone took it seriously because I saw how hacked up we were with Noah being gone. And then what the professionals tell me is that you need peer counseling. You need someone from the side who's at your level to help validate you, to help give you resources, to provide an open ear. But we have restaurants, right? We know who that is, right? That's Dan, the crazy bartender. That's Yana, the doula. That's Amber, the one that everyone goes to because we call her mom, right? And then the third piece that we don't have, which we didn't have, was resources, right? What do we do once we listen to people? Where do we send them to get the help that they need? And so in October, this Innovation Learning Network came to leave a scar in Sacramento. And they established I Got Your Back, which is the purple hand you see behind me. And in every restaurant, so now in 20 restaurants in Sacramento today, there's someone who has a little lapel pin that's a purple hand, who is trained to provide an open ear and resources and validation for people facing mental health issues. And they talked about how we could structure this, right? Little eggheady maybe sometimes, but it was cool because we can figure shit out, right? In the restaurant industry. But we came home and Bobbin said, if we don't talk about this every day in the restaurant, it's going to go away. And that can't happen. And thank them for doing the academic work. But the truth is, this has to be something that speaks to everybody. And my wife's dyslexic. So she created a box. And there's 4 colors on the outside, right? For happy, neutral, angry, in the weeds. And then we all know who the zoned out person is, a little bit of everything in there too. So that box went by the POS system. When you punched in the morning, you put in a card. How you feeling today? And then at lineup, whoever was running the lineup would talk about specials, who's coming in. And then here's the temperature of the restaurant. 9 happy, 3 neutrals, 2 angries, 3 people in the weeds. What are we going to do for the people who are in the weeds to make sure we have a good night? And if you're one of the people who's blue, what do you want us to do for you? And what are you going to take from tonight so that you can help someone the next time when you're not blue and they are? And that's it. And then the magic happens, right? When you're picking herbs, pulling mats, making stock, buffing silverware, you start to have the conversations. What we call it, we shorthand it by saying, conversation now is, instead of how you doing, it's how are you really? And that space between how are you and really gives you permission, as someone who's being asked the question, to really talk about how you are. And we've seen over the course of the last 2 years that it's changed the way we talk about mental health here in Sacramento. And we just started doing it every day in the restaurant. And it was amazingly helpful because our year ended in Christmas season with 4 deaths by suicide in 4 weeks. So 2 former bartenders, a chef who had left, and then a server who was with us. Cassie, whose family lets me tell the story, died by suicide on Christmas Eve. And when we came back after our break, I brought everyone together. I didn't know what to say, but I wanted everyone to know the same, what had happened, and to let them know. And what I saw was that everyone was leaning in and leaning together and sharing and giving space for that comma really to take effect, to be able to talk about these things. And we've seen this happen in other restaurants as well in Sacramento. And there's a couple of things, right, that we do about it. We say, what are we good at, right? What are we good at as restaurateurs? We're good at hospitality. Is your steak cold, right? Is your steak hot? Is your coffee warm? You know, we worry about the others. And this program gives us a chance to take our superpower and focus it on ourselves, right? So we say welcome. It's the first word you hear when you come in. The feeling we hope you leave the B&L with at the end of your meal. So we've taken that and used it to help each other, right? Get better. There's all sorts of ways to do it. And you guys can look at the website, and our friends at Not 9 to 5 in Toronto, who have done a great job, especially with their new manual for training people how to learn and listen and speak about mental health issues. What we do mostly is everyone in our restaurant on their phone has the suicide crisis line or the text line. So someone's having a tough night, and I go out in the back and they're by the dumpster, and I'll just say, hey, you're not doing too good. You know, you need to talk to somebody. I'm not the person to help you. But there's people who will. Do you want to call? Give me your phone. You type in, say, do you want to talk to somebody? You're young. Do you want to text someone? In their phone. And sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. And I say, hey, do you want to see a demo? Let me have your phone. I'll run through what it's like, just in case you need to use this help someday. And then run through it. Say, hi, my name's Patrick, with this person. We're having a little tough day. Here's our challenge. How do we get through it? What resources are available? And then give them back the phone and say, save the number. Call it whatever you want. Call it spaghetti, call it salt, doesn't matter. But I can't be there with you all the time. And it's the loneliness that's going to get to you. And I want to make sure that you have resources all the time as you're there. And it's really worked, right? All across Sacramento, and worked even when we started the pandemic, because now this piece of what we are as a community, right? We cook together, we work in hot kitchens, we run, we yell, we're running around. That was all taken away. But what happened to us is, because we'd been doing this by that point for a year, everybody just put it onto their phone and it went online, so that our leadership staff immediately said, I'm going to check in with everyone every week to see how they're doing. But more important, our whole staff started communicating with each other and saying, I haven't heard from you. You need to speak up. Or are you really okay because you sound strange? They were actually using this to help themselves and help each other reach out. And it's been a great blessing in some ways, right? Because today I can say that the numbers of people, not only that we've lost to death by suicide, have gone down dramatically in our city, but even more important, people now are willing to talk about all their other issues, the anxiety, the depression, substance use and abuse, self-harm that we're doing now become part of everyday conversation. And when you mention something, then you can get help for it and move forward. And so I invite you all to come take a look at our website. You can reach out to me there to talk more about this stuff, because the truth is that what we do is valuable, right? We've all chosen this life called hospitality, right? It wasn't my mother's first choice, but it is a great life, right? And the greatest part about it is that we get to share wonderful experiences with everyone. And this kind of project, by concentrating on mental health, you get to share the wonderful things about life with your staff and make sure that they're here for another day tomorrow. Thanks very much for listening to me. Feel free to reach out through the website. Enjoy the rest of the day. And I'm jealous about everybody who gets to eat in Denver tonight. Good night.
Wow, amazing work that Patrick Mulvaney is doing in Sacramento, and there's so much that we can learn from him about. Thank you so much to our senator, to Eve and Patrick. We're only halfway through, and I'm already overwhelmed by these individuals' messages and their important work in this industry and beyond. Now's your halfway point. So if you want to stand up, squeeze in a little stretch, a couple deep breaths. Now's your chance. Refill your Bloody Mary, Dave. So keeping in touch with our speakers, just a quick recap on the first three, since there's so much to digest here. Senator Hickenlooper talked about the American Rescue Plan, and we are so grateful to see the restaurant grant program and finally see some dedicated federal funds to the restaurant industry after a year of advocating for it. And speaking of, I added here on the slide the Independent Restaurant Coalition. If you're not already connected with them, urge you to go to their website and get directly signed up with them. We'll continue sharing and echoing their messages, but highly encourage you to sign up for their email list. They have an incredible resources page that has detailed information on how you can get prepared for those federal restaurant grants. You can go to saverestaurants.com and go to their resources page. And thank you so much to our senator for voting for the American Rescue Plan and supporting those restaurant grants. And as far as staying in touch with Eve, her new book, Hungry, came out post-pandemic. So it's brand new. It is fascinating. I'm about halfway through right now. Tattered Cover Bookstore, our local store here in the Denver area, is offering 10% off Hungry and The Rise by Marcus Samuelsson through the end of this month. You can buy those books on their website using the code EdTalks2021. It's tatteredcover.com. Or if you're shopping in person, you can mention EdTalks2021 for that 10% off discount. Thank you so much to Tattered Cover. And of course, follow Eve on Instagram to see what she's up to and follow along with her nonprofit. And Patrick Mulvaney and their I Got Your Back resources, their website is an incredible, incredible resource for mental health support. And you heard like even his language that he is offering us as an example is so powerful. So there's more where that came from at igotyourback.info. And you can follow their restaurant and the project on Instagram as well. And next slide, please. We'll also follow up with, in our attendee follow-up email, we'll share EatDenver's Denver area mental health toolkit as well. Another thank you, you may have recognized Liz from Sterling Rice Group, who introduced Eve. I want to say a special thank you to Liz and Dina at Sterling Rice Group in Boulder, who jumped into this working group to help plan Ed Talks and help us make this event happen. And we're really lucky to have them on our team. So any chance you get to work with those ladies and their team, you'll be lucky. Another thank you to our sponsors who are truly helping EatDenver continue our work supporting independent restaurants. Their support of this event and our organization over the last year has meant everything and has truly helped save our nonprofit and help us continue operating. So a very profound thank you. Tattered Cover, as I mentioned, teamed up with us to offer 10% off The Rise and Hungry online and in stores. You can use that through the end of this month, March 31st. Ecolab has been a long-standing sponsor of ours. Many of you already work with them and know Patrick. Patrick and the whole team over there were the first to raise their hands to contribute to our Double Down for Denver Restaurants gift card campaign last year, which just meant the world to us. It was critical to our fundraising and incentivizing over $50,000 in gift card purchases at your restaurants. They thought it was a no-brainer and immediately jumped in to spearhead the financial contribution. So huge thank you to Patrick and everyone at Ecolab. And we're now going to hear a short message from Ecolab.
Hey everyone, it's Patrick Druin here with Ecolab. I want to personally lend our appreciation and support to the entire EatDenver community. It can't be said enough that the last 12 months have been hellish for our industry. Throughout it all, the true character of this entire group rose to the moment to save jobs, save livelihoods, and to save our communities. Independent restaurants make up the fabric of where we live in Colorado. Prior to COVID, maybe some took that for granted, the impact that your business has on our lives. It's not just the missed dining experiences and celebrations, it's the people you employ, It's the charities, the fundraisers, and the schools that you support that all make an enormous difference to the quality of our existence here in Colorado. Locally and across the country, Ecolab has been alongside you throughout this fight, and we're going to be here every step of the way to help us rebound stronger. We know that consumers have heightened cleanliness standards, and a recent report shows guests will pay twice as much to eat in a clean restaurant. Ecolab plays a critical role to help reassure the public and that your environment is clean, it's safe, it's healthy. From industry-leading technology and services to our new science-certified program, we can help deliver more profitable outcomes and get more people in your chairs spending their money. I want to thank you for everything that you do from the bottom of my heart for Colorado. I'm personally privileged to be a supporter of EatDenver and call you a partner. The work that this community does on behalf of our industry is huge. The work matters. It will undoubtedly set us all up for a great 2021 and beyond. Thank you again. Stay safe. Be well.
Thank you so much, Patrick. And onto Society Insurance. They launched in the Denver market last year and immediately jumped in to support and make our 2020 membership dues grant program possible. So they covered 30 to 40 of our members' dues for 2020, which directly impacted some of you all and helped EatDenver continue into the fall. And we really appreciate their support of the dues grant program and also Ed Talks. So we will now hear from the Society team.
Hi, I'm Claire Waller, and I'm the Colorado Regional Sales Manager at Society Insurance. I've been in the insurance industry for over 25 years and currently live in Elizabeth, Colorado with my husband. I'm excited to be here today representing Society. My company is a proud sponsor of today's event because we believe in not only protecting restaurants with our specialized coverage, but we also believe in supporting them when we can too. Society is based in Wisconsin and has been insuring restaurants for over 100 years. Our specialized insurance coverage for restaurants and bars just launched in Colorado at the beginning of this year, and we welcome the opportunity to serve you. On that note, I'd like to introduce you to Michael Bradley from Bradley Insurance.
Hello, I'm Michael Bradley, and I'm with Bradley Insurance Group, and we're proud to partner with Society Insurance. Bradley Insurance Group has been an entity in Denver since 1986. And we're proud to insure and support restaurants throughout the Denver metro area and the entire state of Colorado. With that being said, we'd love to offer you a free insurance quote from Society, and we'd love to help you. Our phone number here at Bradley Insurance Group is 303-480-5005. And again, I'm Michael Bradley. Thank you.
All right, here's the last stretch of our halfway point, the halftime show. Get in your final stretches. Next up, I'm super excited to be able to introduce our fourth speaker of the day, Mariah Kunkel. Mariah is based in LA, and I first learned about her in December. I opened up my Sunday New York Times and found a beautiful feature about the evolution of tiki culture, which featured Mariah's work. I cut it out and I said out loud to a friend that I was sitting next to, she would make an incredible Ed Talk speaker if we could snag her. So I started following her on Instagram, learned a ton about Pacific Island culture from her, and finally reached out, slid into her DMs, and she got connected with us really quickly after that. And we had some really incredible conversations. I'm totally in awe of her thoughtfulness, how she is connecting her 10 years in the craft spirits industry, which includes marketing, brand management, and business development, and her own heritage, and working to build more understanding and representation of the Pacific Island culture. As if that isn't enough, she holds a Juris Doctor from Loyola and is a very serious jump rope advocate. Just yesterday, she had 750 jumps. If you, like me, need some serious inspiration for your coming out of COVID wellness plan, Make sure you follow her on Instagram. One thing that she said in our phone conversation leading up to Ed Talks that has really stuck with me is that this evolution of understanding each other, this evolution of Tiki, it's not about canceling anyone or putting anyone down that is offending her or misrepresenting her culture. She said the goal is to move everyone forward together, not leave anyone behind. And that really hit me hard and made me think about equity through a different lens. I'm so excited for you all to hear about her incredible work as a co-founder of the Pacifica Project and using Tiki as a platform for education and connection to the Pacific Islands. I look forward to seeing what she continues to do through the Pacifica Project, and I'm really looking forward to what you all get out of her talk and connecting with her. Without further ado, Mariah Kunkel.
I would like to begin by acknowledging the original Indigenous stewards of the land that I stand upon today, the Tataviam people, and their elders past and present. It is an honor and pleasure to be with you today. Dankalun Nasijus Masi, thank you very much to EatDenver and their wonderful team for this opportunity to speak and this space to share. Hafade Todas Hamzu, Guahusi Mariah Kunkel. Familian Kitsutsu. Tata Zugitsa Barigada, Lao Pago Sumasigat Zugitsa, Los Angeles. Through my father, I am Chamorro, one of the indigenous people native to the Mariana Archipelago in the West Pacific. My family is from Guahan, or Guam, the largest southernmost island in the Marianas. As I just mentioned, our family name is Kitsu, and we are from the village of Barigada, though I currently live in Los Angeles. The Marianas are divided into two separate territories, or colonies, that are administered by the United States. You may be familiar with the term Guamanian as a descriptor for people from Guam. However, this umbrella term covers those who are native to the island and those who are not, and it is falling out of fashion among those who are indigenous descent, whose ancestors historically lived and moved throughout the archipelago freely. I would also like to make clear that I am Micronesian. I am not Polynesian. While all Polynesians are Pacific Islanders, all Pacific Islanders are not Polynesian. And further, these categories that we call ourselves by today were given to us by outsiders. Our ancestors did not recognize these boundaries or classifications. I work in the spirits industry, primarily on the supplier side, working with artisanal brands and craft producers on marketing, education, branding, and social media. I am one of the co-founders of Pacifica Project, along with my colleagues Samuel Jimenez and Scott Langley. Pacifica Project is a hospitality-focused collective founded by and for individuals of oceanic descent within the industry. Our guiding principles are community, education, and support. We envision a visible, thriving, and diverse Pacific Islander community within the hospitality industry, rooted in a strong connection to the wider Pacifica diaspora, where we can honor our cultures, tell our own stories, support our communities, and navigate paths to professional and personal success. We frequently provide educational resources, give seminars and participate in industry panels, consult on bar programs, and provide media interviews on the subject of Tiki. However, Tiki is not our primary focus, but neither is destroying it. Our primary focus is on creating community, providing support for our people, and sustaining our cultures. And secondary to that is providing an indigenous context to the evolving conversations about Tiki and Pacific culture. This is because Pacifica Project was born out of found community, and that is what we hope to cultivate in the world. At the end of the day, how people feel about Tiki is their own decision to make. We counter the stereotypes and colonial motives found within Tiki by proudly and authentically existing, and with education and cultural exchange. My background and family history gives me a particular point of view on Tiki. Before we dive in, I would just like to say that I don't make a claim to speak for anyone else, and that there is no Pacific monolith. I also readily acknowledge that having this conversation during a global pandemic, where many of our beloved bars and restaurants are desperately trying to survive, is a thought exercise riddled with privilege. Actually disrupting a business that provides for families and creates jobs for others at a time when most folks are struggling is a tall order. I am especially thankful for those business owners who are taking part in this conversation. And I am very grateful for those who have already and continue to make changes that could impact their company's success. It is my hope that respect, change, and business can coexist. Briefly, Tiki is a uniquely American hospitality style that is tropical, theatrical, and dramatic. The fantasy is meant to be fun and perhaps thrilling. It seeks to transport you to another time and place through food, drink, and ambiance, frequently invoking feelings of a vacation or a getaway. It is highly stylized escapism. From its creation in Los Angeles in 1934 by Ernest Gantt at his bar Don the Beachcomber, Tiki has borrowed from a number of traditions from around the world. The food is usually some sort of Asian fusion prepared for an American palate. The drinks largely feature Caribbean rums, while the decor and ambiance is primarily drawn from what is frequently referred to as Polynesian, but it operates as a stand-in for the region of Pacifica at large. The Pacific Ocean, the single largest physical feature on the planet, was divided into 3 subregions, Micronesia, Melanesia, and Polynesia, by 2 different Frenchmen in the 1700s. These divisions did not exist among the indigenous people who lived there. The ocean connected these islands via trade, war, marriage, and migration. They are properly viewed as an interconnected sea of islands, as writer and scholar Dr. Epeli Haofa described them in his seminal essay of the same name. The Pacific is also a highly colonized region of the world, beginning in 1521 with the arrival of Magellan on Guam, continuing through the 1700s with Captain Cook's voyages in Polynesia for Britain, through the illegal US-backed overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii in 1898, and the continued holding of the colonies of American Samoa, Guam, and the Northern Mariana Islands, as well as the administration of the COFA countries of the Marshall Islands, Palau, and the Federated States of Micronesia by the United States. As Dr. Teresia Tewa suggested in her 1999 essay, Militarism, Feminism, and the Polynesian Body, that for outsiders, the Pacific region is largely perceived as a place for military outposts and vacation destinations, where locals aren't merely players in a strategic and commercial space where European, American, and Asian desires are played out. The military ensures the smooth running of the hospitality industry, while the relaxed tourism in turn masks the ongoing military occupation by foreign nations. Tiki also perpetuates these perceptions of Pacifica as merely an idyllic vacation destination, while centering a specific point of view as the main character in its fantasy, using cultural elements to create exoticism. But exotic to whom? The Pacific is not exotic to the people who live there, nor to those who are descended from the cultures that originate from there. With tiki mugs and plastic flowers and subservient and smiling hula girls, Tiki glosses over the very real issues faced by those natives to the islands to preserve the tropical fantasy. It hides the resource extraction and settler colonization with dance reviews and the thrill of the fire knife. The representations of colonized people are distillations of imperial ideologies and motives. They reflect colonized people's value within colonial cultural and economic systems and inform how indigenous people should be treated by society. They can also shape how colonized people feel about themselves. Tiki, a dominant source of the representations of Pacifica consumed by the general public, is properly viewed as part of the ongoing structure of settler colonization. Tiki's exaggerated stereotypes of the people and the cultures of the Pacific are still commonplace. Notions of cannibalism, headhunting, paganism, primitivism, and drunkenness, as well as the sexual objectification of indigenous women. The different periods of Tiki's development are marked by waves. The first wave began with Don the Beachcomber in the 1930s. The second wave occurred after World War II with the return home of veterans who served in the Pacific Theater. The third wave is where we currently find ourselves, infused with new spirit from the craft cocktail movement, as well as marked interest in mid-century nostalgia. However, I'd like to talk about the next wave, or envisioning a way forward. Where do we go from here, armed with the knowledge that tiki contains problematic elements and should evolve? How do we construct something that's more honest, perhaps authentic, more inclusive, and genuinely hospitable to everyone? How do we create opportunities to celebrate and preserve living cultures? How do we create transportative experiences without weaving a fantasy that is riddled with white supremacy or colonialism? Quite simply, we have to commit to doing the work, commit to making positive change. Doing this work isn't simply finishing off a checklist or throwing away your tiki mugs or joining a book club or just adopting a new vocabulary. This work is ongoing and it will not necessarily make everyone feel good at all times. To evolve tiki, we need to face some of its uncomfortable truths in order to deconstruct its stereotypical representation and sexual objectifications, cease appropriating cultural elements, and decenter its default point of view. To do that, we need folks with open minds and a willingness to change. We must have people come to the table to have this conversation, even if it's difficult. We must cultivate dialogue. Frequently, I find myself on the receiving end of charges of trying to cancel tiki, even once on Tucker Carlson. I must confess that I don't think cancel culture truly exists, at least not in the way that pundits like to throw it around. As a society, the act of calling attention to something that is harmful or abusive is often the only tangible tactic available to those without the social, political, or professional power to immediately compel meaningful change. And we've always done that. What's different now is the modes through which we communicate. They've made the voices louder, the speeds quicker, and in more cases, real-world consequences attaching more quickly. I would challenge you to frame this conversation about tiki and potentially other conversations that you're having around diversity, inclusion, and equity in terms of accountability rather than cancellation. Cancellation alienates, it shuts down. Accountability and the ownership that it requires emanates from a place of harm prevention and compassion. It seeks to course correct. It acknowledges the harm that has been done, even if it wasn't intended. It strives to find common ground to build a stronger foundation upon. It shares knowledge. It listens more than it speaks. Accountability doesn't require perfection at all times, but it also won't come easy. It learns and is open to changing its opinion when presented with new facts or context. I would love for you to keep in mind when it comes to tiki that it is linked to several larger issues that continue to impact Pacific Islanders today. Escapism doesn't necessarily require the use of any cultural elements to be achieved, especially when merely used as a prop or a shortcut to spice up an experience. I strongly believe that we can work together to change tiki for the better, to create hospitable places for everyone to enjoy, while simultaneously supporting the preservation of Pacifica's people, culture, and islands. Please honor and support these living cultures now by providing space for Indigenous chefs to share their foods and customs, by patronizing Indigenous artists and artisans, by employing cultural practitioners, etc. Please go straight to the source and contribute to the honest, authentic representation of Pacifica rather than purchasing knockoffs or making crude approximations. I also urge the support of charitable organizations focusing on the needs of the Pacifica community, as well as learning about the issues that flow from colonization and continue to impact the region and diaspora, such as militarization, nuclear testing and nuclear waste, climate change and ocean health, poverty, homelessness and incarceration, desecration of sacred lands and cultural preservation, and decolonization and independence for places like Guam and West Papua. One place that you can start is on the Pacifica Project website, which has an evolving list of resources that prioritizes Indigenous voices. Diversify your social feeds with Pacifica artists and activists. Get in touch with us at Pacifica Project if you'd like to talk, because our goal is not to simply tell folks what they should not be doing. Our goal is to engage. We want to talk through complex issues to construct a better future for everyone, while uplifting and representing the beauty and diversity of Pacifica as honestly as we can. We would hope for the interest and enthusiasm for tiki to extend to the survival of our people, our cultures, and our islands, because we are currently at risk. We love sharing our culture. Our spirit of hospitality is undeniable, and we definitely love fun. I am very excited to see the future that we build together. I will leave you with the words of Dr. Haofa that continue to guide my own work. We should not be defined by the smallness of our islands, but by the greatness of our oceans. We are the sea. We are the ocean. Oceania is us. We must wake up to this ancient truth and together overturn all hegemonic views that aim ultimately to confine us again, physically and psychologically. It is time to create things for ourselves, to create established standards of excellence that match those of our ancestors. Sijis Masi, thank you very much for your time.
Hi, wow. Thank you, Mariah, and thank you to all of our speakers. I'm Sarah Abel. I'm a new board member, and I wanted to just take a minute to say thanks so much for the opportunity to be part of EatDenver, and especially thank you to the Whip Smart Ed Talks committee who helped make Mondays way more bearable over the last 4 months. Our fearless leader, Katie, John, Daniel, Liz, Dina, Heather, and Doc. Thank you for your collaboration, creativity, laughs, and really thoughtful ideas. And thank you to our incredible restaurant and hospitality community for your tireless and inspirational work during such a difficult year. I feel really buoyed by this industry and very lucky to be part of this community. You know how they say you should never meet your heroes? Well, whoever said that never met our next speaker, Niki Russ Federman, 4th generation owner of Russ & Daughters. When I moved to New York in 2004, I was lucky enough to live a few blocks away from Russ & Daughters, the city's undisputed cultural and culinary icon. It had, and still maintains, a magical, magical aura. Over the years, Russ & Daughters has provided a delicious, restorative, and perfectly executed nosh for just about every occasion in my life, from birthdays and anniversaries to celebrations and wakes. Over the past 53 weeks, I've had the distinct honor to be part of the Independent Restaurant Coalition and work alongside Niki and a host of other folks on daily Zoom calls. Not only has Niki helped maintain and foster 107 years of family history, but she's worked with her team to evolve and grow the business without losing sight of what makes Russ & Daughters such a singular destination. She leads her company with grace, style, and generosity. And thanks to Niki and a partnership with Jake Gyllenhaal, Russ & Daughters sold 3,800 of these t-shirts and raised over $92,000 to help fund IRC's fight to pass the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, the $28.6 billion grant program that Hick mentioned at the top of the session. She's done this all while lobbying Congress, caring for her own young family, and carrying on the glorious tradition of appetizing. I implore you to pay Russ & Daughters a visit the next time you're in New York, whether it's the Lower East Side, Uptown, or Brooklyn locations. In the interim, order some bagels, lox, and whitefish, and bring her family's traditions to yours. I am delighted and humbled to introduce my friend and culinary superhero, Niki Russ Federman.
Here at Russ & Daughters Cafe, my restaurant on New York's Lower East Side. The restaurant's currently closed for indoor dining, but we hope to reopen in the spring at least 50%, if not more at that time. If you don't know Russ & Daughters, we're considered the torchbearers of Jewish American cuisine in this country, specifically the food tradition known as appetizing. Don't worry if you haven't heard of appetizing, but if you know and love bagels and lox, that is appetizing. Russ & Daughters was started by my great-grandfather, Joel Russ, in 1914. He started out by just selling schmaltz herring to other poor Jewish immigrants. When he needed workers, he brought in his 3 young daughters. And in 1935, he changed the name, making his daughters his partners, and thereby becoming the first business in this country that has "and daughters" in its name. My parents ran Russ & Daughters for 30 years. I was a shop kid. And now my cousin Josh and I are the 4th generation co-owners. For literally 100 years, Russ & Daughters was just our original appetizing store, which is a few blocks from where I am right now. But in 2014, Josh and I set out to open a restaurant, which became Russ & Daughters Cafe. And we've since opened a second restaurant uptown, Russ and Daughters at the Jewish Museum, our own bakery where we make all of our bagels, bialys, babka, rugelach, black and whites. We have a nationwide shipping facility and a location in Brooklyn. When COVID has certainly been the biggest challenge that we've faced in 107 years. But I've been really buoyed by having the perspective and knowing that 3 generations of my family went through their own adversities. My great-grandfather with the Spanish flu pandemic, 2 world wars, depressions, recessions, more recently 9/11 and Hurricane Sandy. And I've also been motivated by looking to the future and having the desire that Russ and Daughters should be around for another 100 years. And that has motivated me to know that whatever sacrifices and hardships we have to go through now, we've gotten through it before, and it's worth it to be able to keep it moving, into the future. And so with that, I want to talk about longevity. And I recognize that might come off as tone deaf or even crazy, considering the times we're in, and the fact that we are facing so many challenges and struggles, and we're really, all of us are just trying to get through one day at a time. So it's hard to even think about, what comes next. I also recognize that I'm the 4th generation of a 107-year-old business, and that is an exceptional anomaly. Less than 1% of businesses in this country make it to a 4th generation. And in our industry, the norm is quite the other extreme. Most restaurants and bars have very short lifespans. Here in New York, pre-COVID, 90% of restaurants didn't make it past their first year. So what is longevity? The simplest definition that I like is that it's something of long continuance. And it's that word, continuance, or continuity, that is the crux of it for me, because what's important is not the number of years, but the continuity of experience. I think that by having the intention or the mindset of longevity, it reshapes how we approach our businesses, our jobs, and our decision making. And it creates a better experience, both for not just for business, but for our guests and for ourselves personally. It requires some undoing, because we are all conditioned to think that change is necessary and that change is progress. We live in a world where everything is in constant flux, but it leaves us disconnected. Why? Because there are fewer and fewer experiences that root us in the real physical world, in the company of others, and that provide some constant in our lives. And it's these places and these foods that, and I would say our industry is a prime vehicle of this, that connect us to who we are and where we come from. So I believe that continuity is the rarest form of currency. But it's easy to mistake continuity for stagnation, and to think that means that you have to try to keep everything the same. In fact, the definition of continuity is uninterrupted duration or continuation without essential change. And that is so one of the guiding lights for me in how I approach Russ and Daughters. In everything that we do, my cousin Josh and I are always thinking about how to, at the same time, try to preserve 107 years of history and tradition, while also keeping it moving forward. And so the changes we make have to be in a organic extension of what we are, and but also keep Russ and Daughters relevant to today and to future generations. Continuity, therefore, implies a continuum. It's the connective tissue between the past, the present, and the future. So, for example, here at Russ and Daughters Cafe, we intentionally did not want to make it look old and start, chipping away at paint, and because we are old. And we also didn't want to make it so precious and modern that it would disconnect people from the feelings of nostalgia that our food and establishment evoke for so many people. Setting an intention of longevity makes you, I think, a better business person. When we were looking for spaces to open Russ and Daughters Cafe, we spoke with a lot of landlords, and we told them, we're looking for a 100-year lease. And everyone would kind of look and laugh nervously around the table and wonder if we were serious. And of course, we weren't truly serious, but we were also communicating something there. We were saying, we're Russ and Daughters, and if we're going to open a restaurant in your space, it's not going to be a flash in the pan. It's got to be around for 100 years. Maybe not literally, but it's got to be a viable business. The numbers have to work. The margins have to work. The space has to work. And we luckily, took going through a bunch of different conversations to find someone who truly understood that and wanted the same thing. As a landlord, he wanted to make it work to have long-term tenants. We talk a lot in our industry about trends. I would argue that trends are run counter to longevity, because trends come and go. And if you're chasing a trend or basing your business model on a trend, there's going to be a limited time span to that before some other shiny new trend comes along. My family has been making and serving our food long before it was sexy or trendy, and we're going to be doing it long after. When it loses its trendiness, and we're still going to be doing that, and people will still be looking to us for these foods and for this continuity. Legacy is something that I think about every single day, and really informs me. And I would encourage all of you to connect to your legacy, your lineage. And it doesn't have to be, 4 generations and 100 years, but thinking about who are the people, influences, and traditions who make you who you are and brought you to where you are today. Connect to that. And that will inform in a very authentic, meaningful way how you think about your menu, your cocktail program, your decor, your messaging and tone. Be connected to your lineage, and by doing so, you will enable your guests to connect to theirs. Here at the cafe, you might even be able to see behind me, but we have, and in all of our locations, we have large black and white images of my family throughout the years. But you will not find any wall text explaining who's in the picture, what year it was taken. Because very intentionally, we want people to look at those images, and maybe it evokes a memory for them, or reminds them of their grandparents or their immigrant story, their childhood memories. we are also, as an industry, I think, trained to think about how to be constantly reinventing ourselves, you know, changing the menu, coming up with a new drinks or changing the decor. Resist the urge to constantly redo. Create things that become classics. Not everything will become a classic, but those which do, hold on to those and embrace those, because those are the things that your guests will keep coming back for. Because it's the things that last that create the Madeleine moments. And what I mean by a Madeleine moment is, if you know of the famous Proust book, Remembrance of Things Past, there's a moment where the main character bites into a Madeleine, a French cookie, and is flooded with this sort of involuntary memory of childhood. And we all have those Madeleine moments, and we have the power to create Madeleine moments for our guests. And so find out what those are and keep that as the continuous thread, because our food and drink and the spaces that we create are vehicles for memory. It is not uncommon in Russ and Daughters on any given day to find someone who has a tear rolling down their cheek, because our food evokes so much for them. And because Russ and Daughters has been around for so long, for so many people, it is a way for people to feel and to remember. And so, again, you don't have to be 107 years old to be able to do that. It's also important and hard to do to say no more than you say yes. Stay critical and picky so that when the right opportunity comes your way, you're poised to do it and you're not overextended. One of the lessons of COVID has not only been the importance of pivoting and being flexible. I think that comes naturally to us in our line of work, right? But the importance of being of simplifying and streamlining is equally as important. Saying no is not a negation; it's an affirmation of what your core strengths are and the allegiance to staying focused on that. It's also having a longevity mindset in most cases will, I think, make you more conservative. I don't mean politically, I mean in terms of business. And I think that's a good thing. But it'll also enable you and empower you to take big risks when it makes sense to do that. When we needed to build a production space, we built an 18,000 square foot space from nothing. And it was 3 times the amount of space that we actually needed at the time. And you have to remember that here in New York City, that square footage is a lot of real estate. But we weren't thinking about, we were thinking more about the what was coming up down the road. And we figured that maybe in 8 to 10 years, we would actually grow into that space. And we certainly didn't want to have to go through the expenditure and the headache of having to do another huge build out. Little did we know that COVID would happen, and having our space, Russ and Daughters Brooklyn, turned out to be what saved Russ and Daughters, because we could absorb the growth in shipping we could provide a large, expansive workspace where employees felt comfortable coming to work every day throughout the pandemic. And we were able to keep going despite having 2 restaurants shut down. The last thing is to think about who you want to spend your days with at work, just the same way you might think about it, in your personal relationships. Don't get into bed with someone if you're not interested in a long-term relationship. At least, work. It's easy to be wooed by, interesting offers and investors and people who might appeal to the sort of the glamour of our industry, but who aren't going to be with you in the trenches when times get tough. And I don't mean just during a pandemic, but just the daily reality of the work that we do. So really connect with and link up with the people who are going to go through the challenge with you. I hope this is helpful, and I hope that when we are able to travel again and you find yourself in New York, come and visit me at Russ and Daughters, and we will share some food, and I hope to show you some of the things that I've been talking about here. Be well and take care.
Hi, I'm Adrian Miller, the soul food scholar who's dropping knowledge like hot biscuits. And today it is my pleasure to introduce Chef Marcus Samuelsson. Ladies and gentlemen, there are 7 recognized natural wonders of the world. You're about to meet the 8th. Marcus Samuelsson is an acclaimed chef behind many restaurants worldwide. He's the youngest person to ever receive a 3-star review from the New York Times. He's won multiple James Beard Awards. You've seen him on PBS with No Passport Required. You've seen him on the Food Network as a longstanding judge on the hit show Chopped, one of my favorite shows. He's also the author of many books, including this latest one, Rise, The Black Cooks and Soul of American Food. And I am fortunate enough to be included in this book. So thank you, Chef Samuelsson. His podcast, The Moment with Swedish rapper Timbuktu, is out now. In addition to all of these accomplishments, Chef Samuelsson is very generous with his time and his talent. I know almost a decade ago when I was writing my book on the history of soul food, he actually took the time to talk to this unknown guy with a curious appetite, that being me, and lent some of his knowledge to my book, and I'm forever grateful with that. And he's also helped to mentor and support other people. One of his most recent endeavors is Project Bento with co-founders Derek Evans and Samir Aurora of Sage Plus. And they've created something called the Black Business Matters Matching Fund to help families, employees, and businesses in crisis now and through the post-pandemic recovery. So as you can see, Chef Samuelsson is very talented. He's very generous. I'm not sure how he does all of this stuff unless he doesn't sleep or somehow he's been cloned. But ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Chef Marcus Samuelsson.
What's up, everybody? My name is Chef Marcus Samuelsson, and I'm extremely excited to be here and share my experience of being a chef, but also through such a challenging year. And I think 2020, I learned the most I've ever learned is really in this past year. I learned about myself, learned about my extended family, and how to navigate. And both on a professional side and on a personal side, it was very, very difficult, but it was also very rewarding in a way that I could never imagine. Late February, I remember being in South Beach Food and Wine, and Jose Andres was talking to us about World Central Kitchen and the organization that he started years ago. And 2 weeks later, I called him up and I said, Jose, remember you were talking about World Central Kitchen? We need you, specifically Harlem's gonna need you. And he said, I have people, our organization are ready to deal and engage. And 10 days later, specifically March 15 last year, we closed Red Rooster in Harlem and we converted it into a community kitchen together with World Central Kitchen. And in a day, in a night, we went from being this super lively place where 280 people call home, our staff, our musicians, the maintenance people, the night crew, the cooks, the servers, all of those amazing family that makes Red Rooster Rooster. Our 5,000 guests that we meet a week could no longer come and engage with us. But it wasn't just in Harlem for me. It was, we just started to open Red Rooster in Miami. We had to put that on hold. And it wasn't not just so much about putting that on hold, it was also what that meant to the dishwasher, to the cooks, to the hostess. And it was very, very scary times. I've been cooking and working in kitchens since I was 17 years old. And not being able to do that in the same way, to the same capacity, really scared me. I knew I needed that interaction of getting up, going to work, coming back home, that routine, being with my family. And now all of that had to come to a pause. But what gave me that second week, that third week of March, what gave me stability was actually going to the restaurant and handing out food, serving food. The line that was 300 people a day became 400 people, became 500 people a day. And it started to change. We got new regulars, anything from people that was home insecure to first responders. But people came back and the lines grew. We learned how to create a line based on social distancing. Everybody got masks, everybody got gloves, and we learned how to serve in a way that we never served before. And by the end, we served about 1,500 people a day. And, you know, it just became part of what we were doing. At the same time, I knew I needed to navigate through, not just for my family, but also for all the people that work within the Marcus Samuelsson group and all the restaurants. And I knew that I would be tested more than I've been tested before. But there was also some bright spots. In New Jersey, as we got closer to summer, the rooftop that we were working with opened up and 20 new positions was needed over there. Well, the crew at Rooster that lived closer to that side, they could start working in New Jersey, and that was comforting. And it was really this level of daily communication, you know, who needs cooks, who needs servers, and calling on friends, and families, and colleagues. And this incredible network of getting hours and saving people's jobs was part of now truly my day-to-day. And eventually, most people, not all, but most people that were in need of job got a job. Throughout the summer, we started to think about, okay, how long is this going to go? I mean, my first target day was, I think it's going to be over by Memorial Day, then Labor Day, then by Christmas. And now it's obviously the way this is the new normal. And we are learning how to navigate through. I think it's amazing the type of things that come out of this pandemic. Something like Independent Restaurant Coalition, right? Why didn't we have something like that before? But now we got it. And through the extraordinary work of that collective, we actually are part of pushing Congress and pushing our local politicians to create a $28 billion restaurant bill, an initiative that eventually is going to help local restaurants, mom and pops throughout this country. And there's powers in these numbers, right? Sometimes you forget that we that work in restaurants, we're part of somewhere between 11 to 15 million restaurant workers in this country that work in independent restaurants. So we're part of this huge network. And sometimes we forget how much power it is in that. And I think that is one of the lessons that I learned from 2020, that we're part of something larger. I think also that as a chef with a platform, it was very important for me to sharing that space and sharing new information. And for me, it was thinking through starting my podcast, This Moment, but also finishing the book, The Rise. As the country was going through and navigating, obviously, COVID, we also dealt with a longer pandemic, right? We had a social justice conversation that I hope stays in terms of race. And the sad thing is that we'll solve and get the vaccine for COVID, but the pandemic of racism is still within us. So there's obviously a longer take, and it's going to take longer to not to work on it, but actually to fix it. And I think working on The Rise, finishing The Rise during this summer, during the past summer, with incredible demonstration, the manifestation that happened was very, very powerful, was also something that I will never forget. And then throughout fall, be able to broadcast people of color, Black chefs in the space has been one of the highlights of my career. I think as chefs, we all share a love for people or a love for food, all foods, all people. But we also been scared, what's going to happen to my business? What's going to happen to my job? So it's going to require the most amount of working collectively, locally together. And I know as chefs, we're not scared of that. That's something that we've been doing for a long time, but we're really going to be put to the test, tested even more, right? Because now as the vaccine is being rolled out, we're grateful for that. Then eventually what's going to happen? Are our customers going to come back right away? Are they going to be intimidated coming back to our restaurants, knowing that the restaurant industry to begin with is not a really high profit center? So we do need everybody to come back. So we can't, if the restaurant has between 5 to 8% profitability, we do need our guests to come back fully and engage with us, with mask, or depending on how people are comfortable going out to see outside or inside. And I do think this stop and start has been one of the hardest part, right? Obviously locally it's been felt the same, but it's been sort of experienced very differently. In certain parts of the country, outdoor dining works because of the climate. In certain parts of the country, we do need indoor. And here in New York with it closer, and then 25%, 35%, now we're back up to 50%. It's been very, very challenging. But I do know that we're strong. And I know that the larger EatDenver community and the Colorado community is extremely, extremely strong. I've taken a lot of inspiration from people like Bobby Stuckey and his team that really led the way in the Independent Restaurant Coalition, but also the mom and pop restaurants that have shown so much inspiration in terms of how quickly they pivoted to doing takeout and connecting to the community through takeout and just being very, very creative with it. I think all chefs, all restaurants have also learned how to connect with their audience in different ways, right? Whether it's been cooking classes online or cooking classes on FaceTime or on Instagram, we now are put in a place that we have to connect with our audience, with our customers in any possible way. As a chef that is on TV, obviously I'm extremely privileged and fortunate to be able to do that. but local restaurants can do that too, because every local restaurant has that local following that can really talk to their community in terms of, hey, I need you now, and I really need you to sign up for this cooking class or sign up for this swag that our restaurant are producing. Really think about, yes, if the word of 2020 was pivoting, I hope the word of 2021 is really compassion and understanding for what it takes to run a restaurant and what it takes for us collectively to open back up again. But I know we can do it, because I do know if there's any community that is strong, any community that has been tested, is the restaurant community. And we always pull through. This numbers is super important. This has impacted Black and BIPOC communities extremely hard. 41% of all Black and BIPOC businesses have closed because of COVID. And I do think it's important to work with your neighbors and really be as inclusive as you possibly can. And I have a lot of faith in our communities that we're going to do that, because that's what we do as restaurateurs, as chefs, as servers, as bartenders, and so on. And I do think that I've taken a lot of pride and gotten a lot of inspiration from all of you guys this year, speaking to my colleagues, speaking to my friends across the country, how people have pivoted, how people have changed their offering. They've gone from restaurants to bodegas in the restaurants to serving first responders, to working with World Central Kitchen or a local organization such as, and it's going to take all of that to navigate through this. I know here in New York, I can't wait to fully open up Red Rooster Harlem and fully open up Red Rooster in Miami. I miss my community. I miss my guests. I miss my cooks. I miss the back and forth, the why we started in the restaurant business. We are givers. And if we can't share our craft, it's very, very hard for us to get up and to continue to do it. But this is the type of moment where we are being tested. I know we can push through, because that's what we do in the restaurant industry. And I've also never been prouder to be part of the restaurant industry than this very moment. So keep cooking, keep serving, keep sharing, and thank you for all that you do. And I can't wait to eventually be able to come back to Colorado and cook with you guys soon again, or meet you soon again, and maybe not have such a social distance recording, actually be in person, because I love all my trips in the Denver area and in Aspen and in all over Colorado I've been. It's been amazing. The people I met, the chefs that I met, the community. So thank you for all the times I've been to Colorado and to the larger Denver area. Thank you for all you do. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you so much, Marcus. And we absolutely cannot wait to host you again, maybe in Aspen this fall. Thank you so much to all of these incredible speakers. They all volunteered their time when we all know there's no time to be had. They carved out the time to gather with us today and to share what they've been up to. And we're so, so grateful that they tuned in to share some of that unicorn dust with us. We hope you had a meaningful morning with us and that Ed Talks has inspired and sparked something for you today. Eric, can you do the next slide? Thanks. If you want to learn more, keep in touch and support these last three speakers. Here is information about keeping in touch with Mariah and her Pacifica project. Her website is pacificaproject.com. Niki, Russ, Federman, you can find their information, and through Goldbelly, they're actually shipping their products around the country, and we have a special Russ and Daughters delivery coming our way to Denver this afternoon. So after we wrap up, I'll be sitting outside waiting for the bagels and Norwegian smoked salmon to show up, and fully encourage you to do the same. They're at russanddaughters.com. And then lastly, The Rise, which I have right here. It is one of the most inspiring books I have ever picked up, and really encourage. It makes such a great gift to your team, friends, family. It's a cookbook, but with a lot of really inspiring content, and even the author's note in the beginning, which Marcus wrote in July, will hook you right away. So remember that you can go to tatteredcover.com and use the code EdTalks2021 to get 10% off of that book. Or if you're in person, mention the event. And also you might have been delighted to see Adrian Miller introduce Marcus, and he has a brand new book that he's launching in April, and you can pre-order that through Tattered Cover. It's called Black Smoke. And we're so excited for Adrian's new book as well. Next slide. And a final thank you to our sponsors, Tattered Cover Bookstore, Society Insurance, and Ecolab. And one secret hero behind today's event, I can say it now that my internet hasn't cut out and that everything has gone super smoothly and I can't jinx anything, is Eric from JSAV Event Production Company here in Denver, who has been keeping us moving behind the scenes today. So thank you so much to Eric and Raisa and your whole team, and for all your webinar support and in-person event support when we start events back up again, jsav.com. Next slide. We would love it if you're not already a member of EatDenver. We would love if you would stay in touch with us. If you're not a member, we'd love to share info about joining our community of independent restaurants. You can go to eatdenver.com to find info. You can follow us on Instagram at EatDenver. And again, when you're posting about the event today, make sure to use the hashtag EdTalks2021. We have a really exciting member program scheduled for April 14th. It's going to be a discussion with several restaurant leaders doing great work in the diversity, equity, and inclusion area in our industry. So save the date for April 14th, 9 a.m. Mountain Time. And we're excited to share some information about those speakers in the coming weeks here. Next slide, please. And just a final huge thank you for making the time to gather with us virtually. Next year, we can't wait to do Ed Talks in person. Don't forget to support today's speakers by following them on social media, tagging them in your posts, supporting their businesses and books, and just sending some virtual love in general. If you and your teams do not have a vaccine appointment yet, you can go to cocovidvaccine.org, and we're working really hard to be able to replicate the restaurant worker only vaccine clinics happening in Denver yesterday and today. We really hope to be able to continue that over the next few weeks to support the rest of your teams getting vaccinated next to Snooze and Atimo. Huge thank you to everyone that made that clinic happen. It takes a village and is an enormous milestone for all of us. I know there's a lot of emotion going on next to Snooze and Atimo today and yesterday, and I can feel it from here and just really feeling grateful. So thank you all for joining. Thank you for your important work always, and especially right now as we reopen and begin to gather again. Happy spring, and we can't wait to see you in person soon. Thank you so much.